The Vikings 2022 draft class is complete. It was a crazy long weekend. I know you guys were in for the long haul. Voice of the Vikings, Paul Allen, Gabe Henderson, Vikings Entertainment Network. And this is Pick 6, where we took all of your questions after this weekend. But I think I have a question of my own to get us going. And that's the first one of Pick 6. And
great.
Paul, what is your biggest takeaway from this Vikings 2022 NFL draft class? And as always, 30 seconds.
Oh, wow. How about the fact that Las Vegas handled the National Football League draft basically perfectly? I mean, Tatum was there, I wasn't, but I know people who were there. And whether it was from the holding area at the Bellagio and getting cats across the street to the Link, which used to be the Barbary Coast for old schoolers, in a timely fashion, what a wonderful place for the draft. Whomever is next, Kansas City, good luck. That old schoolers will appreciate this. That's akin to being the Animals opening for the Beatles, but good luck.
As we would say in draft culture, Kansas City, you're on the clock.
Right.
You're on the clock. Gabe, what is your biggest takeaway from the draft class?
Well, I'm going to go Vikings, and I'm going to go with the fact that the Vikings made a conscious effort to address the defensive side of the ball. 5 of the first 6 picks were defensive players. 3 of those players were defensive backs. And we already know the Vikings, they spent over $80 million in free agency, and a lot of people were like, okay, we can go best player available. Kwesi was like, hold that up really quick. I want to talk more defensive side of the ball, and I want to address by making some playmakers become Vikings on this coming weekend. Brian Asamoah, Andrew Booth Jr., Lewis Seen. All 3 of those guys will be making plays in 2022 for this Minnesota Vikings draft. For this Minnesota Vikings team. But more importantly, I'm so excited that Kwesi finally got his first draft out of the way.
And that is what I will take as my biggest takeaway from this 2022 draft, is the fact that maybe we learned a little bit more about how Kwesi will maneuver during the offseason and during the draft. Trades. He's like Oprah out there. You get a trade and you get a trade. And it was very interesting to see his maneuvers. You go into the draft with 8 picks. You come out with 10 new names. Trading back for value seemed to be the name of the game for Kwesi. He's not afraid to trade with other teams.
Right.
He's just not afraid to take risks.
He's got a background.
Yeah, we're going to need those DBs to cover Jamison Williams and Christian Watson. So in Kwesi, we trust, and here we go.
Surprisingly, that wasn't one of the questions that we got from these fans for Pick 6. So I'll head into question number 2, though, for you, Paul Allen. Eric Peterson asks you, do you think the Vikings did the right thing trading down from numbers 12 and 34 early on in the draft? Thanks. He had the polite thanks in there. 30 seconds.
EP, thank you. The answer is yes, because I still ain't tripping on the Lions. I mean, you can go ahead and beat that house of cards, the Arizona Cardinals, and brag about it. You can go ahead and walk off on the Minnesota Vikings, Amon-Ra St. Brown, back left of the end zone, and feel good about it. But you still got a lot of work to do in the division. And Kwesi and the staff, they identified X amount of players right around 32 with an ability to amass more picks. So they got who they wanted. So when it comes to 12 to 32, no problem.
Yeah, I think with that said, when you look at the last time the Vikings traded with the Lions, I forgot who they got, but we got Everson Griffin in return. And he was a guy that made a lot of plays for this team. And then I think after that was Daniil Hunter or somebody of that nature. So there is value in trading in the division, and it has been proven.
But see, those are rounds 3 and 4. So it significantly and legitimately is unprecedented to trade within the division rounds 1 and 2. Dallas and Philadelphia, they flipped 10 and 12 last year. But before that, I mean, you need a searchlight to find the last time division teams are trading within the first or second round. So, I mean, Kwesi with the algorithms and the calculation and everything, he knows more about it than us. That's the end of the story for me.
Yeah, very unconventional, but we'll see if it was effective. Pick
3 years.
3 years. Give him 3 years.
Give him 3 years.
Well, this is a good question for you, Gabe, especially after what your biggest takeaway was from the draft class. How do Booth and Evans differ in their skill sets, and are they projected to be outside guys?
Well, they'll both be wealthy they're probably wealthy after this last weekend, but I think both of those guys will be projected as outside guys simply because of their size. Andrew Booth Jr. is 6 foot. Caleb Evans, 6'2". The difference between those guys is that Caleb Evans is a little bit taller. Being 6'2", he takes up more space, which means he can guard a tall wide receiver in the red zone and get away with some stuff that Andrew Booth Jr. couldn't get away with. But Andrew Booth Jr., he's so freakishly athletic that when he makes plays, you think he is 6'2 or 6'3. So those guys, they will be making plays for the long haul, but those are the two big difference between those two guys, which I think are really good problems to have if you're Durante Jones.
You definitely get an idea of what a cornerback may look like in the future as this Vikings team moves forward with Kwesi and Kevin, because those guys are very, 2-inch difference, but very similar in stature. Let's go into question number 4. Let's go to the offensive side of things, Paul. This is from Barry. He asks, does this draft mean Kirk Cousins is here through 2023?
I mean, yeah, the answer for me was yes into the draft, and it's yes now. And this is not a, he goes for 425, 3 touchdowns and 0. And after a game, you're going to see Gabe or me going, take that, Kirk haters. It ain't about that. It's about the fact that he's a top 10 quarterback in the National Football League. They're very, very hard to find. He and the head coach are like this. They're like a fist when it comes to putting this whole thing together. And whether they had taken a quarterback in the first 2 rounds or not, it's Kirk's money, literally and figuratively. So I got no problem with that.
Is it a Vegas thing? The money's on the table.
Right.
He's on the money.
Well, I mean, as a matter of fact, if anybody had noticed these clothes Tatum came back with from Vegas, I don't know what you did on the craps table, but somebody got somebody, because you got like this wardrobe that's unbelievable all of a sudden. Not that the last one was bad.
I just don't have anything for that one.
I appreciate
today.
the disclaimer, because Tatum dresses nicer than both of us every
It's
single
the age
show.
of rage. You got to be careful.
All right. Getting back on track. We got pick number 5, Gabe. Like I said, I got nothing to say to that. This is from Josh Laurie. Gabe, who do you think will be the center competition come training camp to battle Bradbury for the starting role?
This is going to be very entertaining, and including Garrett Bradbury, I'm going to say Wyatt Davis is one, Jesse Davis is the other, and Austin Slotman will be the other. That's a 4-man race. And you got Wyatt Davis, who hasn't played a snap at guard, even though he was drafted there last year. However, he did get snaps at center in pregame and in practice. Austin Slotman, you look on Vikings.com, his title is guard/center. There you go. Jesse Davis, he's played every position on the offensive line there could be. You mix all 3 of those guys, one guy who is a veteran, another guy who's trying to be a veteran, and then another guy who has a position that I'm saying I don't want to lose. Got a coaching staff that's like, let the best man win. That's must-see TV, and I'm all ears and eyes for this training camp.
Competition breeds quality, and of course, we're only talking about that because the Vikings did opt out of the 5th-year contract for Garrett Bradbury. So the competition will be good, and mainly from Garrett, because he's got a lot to prove.
Well, Bradbury's a cinch. If Garrett doesn't win the center job, and I understand all the names and everything, but Garrett, certainly like a lot of players in the league, has the proverbial warts, but Garrett does so many underrated things that are good in the screen game and the run game. I think Garrett's a cinch.
Yeah, I think, it's his job to lose, right? He's been a starting center the past 3 years. So if he loses his job, that means another person outworked him and another person was better. And for the Vikings, that's a really good problem to have, because your starting center is not the starting center anymore because somebody is better. So let the best man win.
And that.
All right, we got our final question here on Pick 6, and this is my favorite one yet. This is from Terry Ernest at Mustang2869. His favorite pick outside of round 1. Paul Allen, 30 seconds. We all picked different ones, so you can go first. 30 seconds.
Well, I really struggled between LSU guard Ed Ingram and Clemson corner Andrew Booth Jr. And why I struggle with that is because I see with Lowe from Illinois and Ingram from LSU, I see that they're adding size to the Minnesota Moving Company, but that right guard spot's open. I happen to like Chris Reed more than most people on the outside watching this, so I think Reed's in the mix. But Booth, you have position flexibility with him. You can do so many different things with him and Chandon Sullivan and move them around. So Booth's really good against the run, too. So I'm going to go Andrew Booth Jr.
All right, Andrew Booth Jr., first off. So that he's off the board,
He's
Gabe.
off the board.
Who is your favorite player outside of round 1 from this year's draft?
And I feel like Ed Ingram is off the board too. So
technically, yeah,
I'm going to go Brian Asamoah, linebacker from Oklahoma, and simply because of the story of him getting here, and then the story of when he becomes a starting linebacker for the Minnesota Vikings in maybe a year or 2 from now. He understands he needs to get in the weight room, but give him 1 year in that weight room, 1 year behind Eric Kendricks, or 1 year beside Eric Kendricks, plus the snaps on special teams. I think this guy is going to be an everyday 3-down linebacker, and it's going to be the new era of modern linebackers here in the NFL that can stop the run cover your tight end, and rush the passer.
And see, that plays into the hybrid bit we talked about with Booth and Chandon Sullivan, because Eddie D had Donatel with this 3-4 base for the first time in 40 years. We have no idea what's coming, but neither does the adversary. And with Sullivan and maybe Booth Jr. and with this Jeremy Chin-like guy, Carolina Panthers, Asamoah, you can do a lot of things with talent like that and speed like that. I'm excited for this defense.
I am very excited. Now, you guys didn't leave me too many of the higher picks, so I'm going to have to pick more of a dark horse guy. And Gabe, you're going to like this one. My dark horse is Ty Chandler, albeit he went to North Carolina for 1 year. I know him
Go
as
Hills.
a Tennessee Volunteer because that's what I covered before coming here.
What have you done for me lately?
He's from Nashville, and he is a speedster, 4.38 40. But I think the biggest thing that sticks out for me about Ty Chandler is that it's his down the field pass catching ability. He is a shifty guy. He has great hands. He also can contribute on special teams. He's a great kick returner. I know that we do have Kene Wangu, but Alexander Madison's in his last year of his contract. So I think it's another great competition in that running back room. I think Ty Chandler is a great addition and could really surprise a lot of people.
What happened to you in Las Vegas? Who are you?
What do you mean?
How are you not taking anybody from LSU? Ed Ingram. I mean, who are you? What has
Well,
happened?
you're talking about my wardrobe today. I am wearing tiger print, so just
Okay,
for the record.
you're back.
Just for the record, I'm back. Thank you so much for tuning in to Pick 6 this week. You guys, this was fun. It was great to get all of your draft questions. We will do this again in a couple of weeks. Be sure to look out for Gabe and I's tweets at Tatum Everett, at Gabe A. Henderson for the next round of questions. They get us pretty good every single time. So
Love it.
for Gabe Henderson, Paul Allen, I'm Tatum Everett. We'll see you next time.